The Information Minister, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, has described as disappointing the sharp decline in the use of the Right to Information Act to access public information. According to him, only 10 applications have been received this year, which he says is in sharp contrast with the average number of 32 recorded quarterly since the passage of the bill. Answering a question on the floor of the House, the MP charged the media to resort to the use of the RTI Act instead of speculations.
Mr. Speaker, for the year 2020, 72 of the applications were granted, 6 were rejected, 3 were transferred, 3 were referred, 1 was deferred. For the year 2021, 95 applications were granted, 7 rejected, 6 transferred, 17 referred, 2 deferred, and 2 reviewed. And for the year 2022 so far, out of the 10 that have been received, 8 have already been granted, 1 has been rejected, and 1 has been referred to the appropriate ministry, department, or agency to respond to it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, a careful look at the responses given by the Minister of Information would show that in 2020, an average of 22 requests were made in every quarter. In 2021, the figures show that an average of 32 requests were made in each quarter. In 2022, we are almost about finishing the first quarter of 2022, but so far we've had only 10 requests. It shows some form of reduction in activism or an attempt to make requests to the RTI Commission. Do you have any reasons, or would you be able to tell us what may account for that reduction when you do the year-on-year comparison?
The RTI implementation in other jurisdictions shows that in the very first year, you have attempts to test the system. And so often in the very first year, you have a very high number of applications. And this dwindles sometimes over the period. That may explain why in the very first quarter of implementation, there was such a high request. But, Mr. Speaker, I agree with my colleague on the other side that for all the amount of money that has been spent, all the hours of executive and parliamentary time has been spent in legislating on the RTI, it's a bit disappointing that even in subsequent years, these are the very few numbers of requests that have come through. We, on our part, consider we need to do a lot of public education and advocacy to get a lot more people aware that the RTI Act is in full operation.
He also appealed to the House to approve the fees and charges accompanying the Act to address the discrepancies over the fees charged by some public institutions.
This schedule that will spell out the applicable fees and charges. For that reason, majority of the grants that have been done have been on gratis basis at no cost to the applicant. A good number of them have been between about 1 cedi, 2 cedi for the reproduction, per page for the reproduction. Admittedly, there's been, I think, 1 or 2 instances in which some very high figures were proposed by the agencies, and the applicants quickly resorted to the RTI Commission, and the Commission ruled that those figures were a bit high and actually recommended the right figures.